In the final days of August 1997, the world was shaken awake by a single devastating headline: Princess Diana, the woman millions lovingly called the People's Princess, was gone. The shock traveled faster than sunrise. Streets grew quiet, televisions flickered with breaking updates, and across continents, people stood frozen as they tried to comprehend the unthinkable. What followed her death would become one of the most emotional, scrutinized, and historic moments in modern British history. With barely 6 days between her tragic accident and her funeral, officials, royals, and grieving citizens experienced a whirlwind of decisions and emotions that would shape Diana's legacy forever. But hidden behind the cameras and crowds were secret decisions, broken royal traditions, private conflicts, and emotional moments the world never saw. These are the untold truths behind Princess Diana's funeral. Unlike other members of the British royal family, Princess Diana had no funeral plan prepared. Royal funerals are normally organized decades in advance. When Prince Philip passed, Operation Forth Bridge immediately went into action. When Queen Elizabeth II eventually died, Operation London Bridge had been waiting since the 1960s. Even King George VI, who died in 1952, had a detailed plan called Hyde Park Corner. But when Diana died, there was nothing. Her passing was too sudden, too unexpected. Officials were forced to act fast, digging up an older plan originally crafted for another royal, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. The plan was renamed Operation Tay Bridge, and ironically, the Queen Mother herself was still alive at the time. She watched in uneasy silence as parts of her own future funeral arrangements were activated for her former daughter Law. As news spread, one question echoed through Britain: where is the Queen? For days after the accident, Queen Elizabeth II remained at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, taking care of young Prince William and Prince Harry. To the public, however, her silence felt icily distant. Outside Buckingham Palace, thousands pressed against the railings, laying flowers that rose into mountains of color and sorrow. But the palace's flagpole stood empty. By tradition, the royal standard only flew when the monarch was present. It was never flown at half-mast, because the crown, unlike a person, could never be half-present. But in the public's eyes, that empty pole symbolized something deeper. They felt Diana was being overlooked once again by the institution she had separated from just a year earlier. The pressure surrounding the tragedy reached its peak on the day of the funeral, when the Queen broke royal precedent by allowing the Union flag to fly at half-mast over Buckingham Palace in honor of Princess Diana. It was a rare moment of compassion that reflected the nation's grief. But the image that defined the day was the heartbreaking sight of Prince William and Prince Harry walking behind their mother's coffin alongside Prince Charles, Prince Philip, and Earl Charles Spencer. The world watched in silence as the young princes faced unbearable sorrow in public. Though Spencer later described the walk as horrific, both brothers eventually acknowledged they were grateful to honor their mother with that final act of love. As the procession approached Buckingham Palace, the Queen stood outside with Princess Margaret and other senior royals. When Diana's coffin passed, the Queen bowed her head deeply. Princess Margaret, however, barely nodded. Moments before the coffin arrived, she was reportedly discussing renovations at Kensington Palace, revealing the sharp contrast between Diana's emotional impact and the institution's rigid focus on tradition. Earlier in their lives, Margaret had sympathized with Diana's struggle with constant media attention. But after Diana's explosive BBC Panorama interview, she turned against her entirely. Even death did not thaw that frost. Inside St. James's Palace, hundreds of condolence books filled long wooden tables. People waited hours, sometimes up to 12, just to write a message. Around the world, British embassies opened their doors for mourners. It was clear Diana's influence was global. Her death wasn't just a royal tragedy, it was a universal heartbreak. The moment that truly shook the world came when Earl Charles Spencer stepped forward at Westminster Abbey to deliver one of the most unforgettable eulogies in modern history. He honored Princess Diana's compassion and her rare ability to connect with every kind of person. Then, in a stunning turn, he condemned the ruthless press that had pursued her and vowed to shield Prince William and Prince Harry from the same fate. The crowd erupted in applause, almost unheard of at a funeral. Two silent tributes also carried deep meaning. Prince Charles chose not to wear the traditional black mourning attire. Instead, he wore a navy suit, the suit Diana had always said was her favorite. Meanwhile, Queen Elizabeth II honored Diana through her jewelry, wearing one of the historic Victoria bow brooches, heirlooms that symbolize generations of British queens. It was subtle, quiet, but meaningful. Inside the Abbey, 2,000 attendees gathered, a mix of royalty, dignitaries, world leaders, and unexpected celebrities. Among them were Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg, Sir Richard Attenborough, George Michael, Cliff Richard, and Luciano Pavarotti. Even Hillary Clinton attended, representing the United States. Diana had crossed borders far beyond politics and monarchy. She had connected with movie stars, musicians, humanitarian leaders, and millions of ordinary people. Her funeral reflected that global reach, but the moment that moved hearts around the world was Elton John seated at a grand piano, performing a rewritten version of his 1973 hit Candle in the Wind. The original song had honored Marilyn Monroe, but lyricist Bernie Taupin transformed it into Goodbye England's Rose. Elton had reconciled with Diana just weeks before at the funeral of Gianni Versace, making the performance even more emotional. Nervous about getting the lyrics wrong, he used a teleprompter, the only time he ever performed that version live. When the single released days later, it became the best-selling song in UK history, with all profits donated to Diana's charities. Throughout the procession, Diana's coffin followed tradition. It was draped with the royal standard and lined with lead, as is customary for members of the royal family. But atop the coffin lay a simple white bouquet placed by her sons, and nestled among the flowers was an envelope with one heartbreaking word, written in a child's handwriting. Mummy. That small piece of paper, seen by millions around the world, became one of the most emotional symbols of the entire ceremony. Unlike many royals, Princess Diana was not buried in Westminster Abbey or St. George's Chapel. Her brother chose a more private resting place. At first, he considered the family vault at Althorpe, their childhood home, but the overwhelming public devotion convinced him otherwise. Several attempts had already been made to break into her potential tomb. Instead, he chose a secluded island at the Oval Lake, surrounded by trees that Diana herself had planted. Only her family can approach the island. Visitors to the estate can view it from afar, standing in silence before a memorial temple built beside the water. There, Diana is surrounded not only by nature, but by several of her beloved pets, including her cat Marmalade. Princess Diana's funeral was more than a farewell, it was a reckoning, a moment when the world witnessed the collision between monarchy and humanity. Her life reshaped a generation, and her death forced an ancient institution to evolve. Today, her legacy lives on in compassion, courage, and the millions who still remember her as the people's princess. If her story moved you, like, share, and spread her legacy, so her light continues to reach new hearts. Thanks for watching.